We are now just 22 days away from the first Democratic presidential debates here on this very network. And we're continuing our new series of reports called The Road to Miami, where Steve Kornacki breaks down everything we need to know about the critical states along the way, along Interstate 95 from Maine to Florida. Tonight, we're stopping in the Granite State, New Hampshire. And back tonight is our national political correspondent, Steve Kornacki. Hey, Steve.
Hey, Brian. That's right. Well, we crossed the Piscataqua River Bridge from Kittery, Maine into Portsmouth, New Hampshire today, made it into the Granite State. And by the way, I had to stop at an ATM machine, thought I would get some cash in tax-free New Hampshire for the rest of the trip. I took out $100, and then I realized I'm in New Hampshire, and $100, that is a politician's salary, did you know, in New Hampshire? A state legislator in the state of New Hampshire makes a salary of $100 a year. In California, in New York, they get over $100,000 a year in the state legislature in New Hampshire. This is the lowest salary you're going to find in the country. A member of the state legislature gets $100 a year. So that's the salary in New Hampshire. But of course, when we talk about the presidential race, we talk about New Hampshire. We talk about the first in the nation presidential primary. And of course, the Democratic race, you'll have the Iowa caucuses. You'll switch to New Hampshire. This is the modern history of the New Hampshire primary here. These are the winners on the Democratic side going back the last half century. And what you see here, Carter in 76, Carter in 80, Dukakis in 88, Gore in 2000, Kerry in 2004. Half the names you see here, half of the winners of the New Hampshire primary in sort of modern times have gone on to win the presidential nomination on the Democratic side. 5 for 10. So that's one thing. New Hampshire winnows the field often, but not always. The winner of the New Hampshire primary goes on to win the Democratic nomination. Here's something else to keep in mind in New Hampshire, though. These names: Ed Muskie right here, Michael Dukakis, Paul Tsongas, John Kerry, Bernie Sanders. What do they all have in common? They won, and they come from states. They came from states that border New Hampshire. This is another major factor in the New Hampshire primary, and it's going to be a factor in 2020. Bernie Sanders running again, won it in 2016 from a border state, came into the race in 2016, already well known in New Hampshire. Elizabeth Warren, Seth Moulton from Massachusetts. We will see if he makes the debate. That's another question. But Warren in Massachusetts as well, well known in New Hampshire going into this campaign, particularly southern New Hampshire, the Boston media market. What does that do? It raises the bar for candidates from border states. If they don't break out, if they don't have a strong performance in New Hampshire, it is particularly tough for them to justify continuing with their candidacy. So New Hampshire, it's big for everybody, but it's particularly big for candidates with that local connection. Remember, again, Sanders got 61% of the vote in New Hampshire in 2016. So how do things look at this early point in New Hampshire? This is a poll from about a month ago, Monmouth. This is the most recent one we've got. Looks a lot like what we've been seeing nationally. You got Biden out there in front, doubling up Bernie Sanders. Again, Bernie Sanders, the 2016 winner. Buttigieg has gotten some early traction here. Warren, again, if you looked at polls in New Hampshire, some of the early stuff a year or so ago, Warren was doing better. Warren, I think any scenario that gets her to the nomination, she's going to need to perform here in New Hampshire. Again, it is a neighboring state for her. A lot of folks there know her very well. So one thing to keep an eye on, New Hampshire winnows the field all the time. And really, for those border state candidates, particularly important, Brian.
And Steve Kornacki, as to just looking at that list of candidates, states aside, we're watching that Biden number with some fascination. And based on the political theory of Chris Matthews, the Democrats who get serious about electability, that might mean we see the Biden number harden or strengthen. The Democrats who feel like the party is about something new, it's about the far left, it's about the younger politicians coming up, that's when we'll see the Biden number weaken.
And that's the most fascinating thing, because we saw this. There was a batch of polling out nationally today as well. One of the trends we've seen on this Democratic race is a massive divide when it comes to age. There was a poll out from our friends at CNN today that showed Joe Biden is actually losing the Democratic nomination race right now in polls. He's losing Democrats under 45 years old to Bernie Sanders. Democrats over 45 years old, and there are a lot of Democrats over 45 years old. He's not just winning, he is clobbering Sanders, and he is clobbering the field. And that is Biden's strength right now. That was a strength for Hillary Clinton, ultimately age older voters that got her the nomination in 2016. And that is a very big strength for Biden right now heading into 2020, and a vulnerability for him, younger Democratic voters.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.